Listen, Wednesdays may be a hump day for some people, but it need not be for you. How would it feel to just hit pause for a moment? A chance to refresh and re-energize your mind, body, and spirit. Let's find out together on the Water Yourself Wednesday show. Tune in as real women share their stories of triumphs and transformations and how they have manifested the lives that they desire and truly deserve.
Hello, 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 hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Water Yourself Wednesdays, the midweek hope for hump day. But it doesn't have to be a hump day for all of us. We can certainly use this moment to come together, take a beat, take a breath, and really just pause and water ourselves. So welcome to the Water Yourself Wednesday show. Today, we're going to be talking all about the gift of choice and how we can create the life that we desire and deserve with the choices that we have. Today, I'm welcoming a very special guest, a friend of mine, Miss Jen Frontiero, and she is coming to us from Copper Beach Institute. Jen Frontiero is the owner of Fresh Event Services and the director of programs at Copper Beach Institute. She is a wholehearted spiritual leader with a natural ability for relationship building and connection. She has studied psychology, sociology, and public health and wellness at Southern Connecticut State University. She served 2 terms with AmeriCorps and actively has pursued her interests in service learning, culinary arts, event planning, and management throughout her career. Jen has completed holistic life coach training in 2018 and 200-hour yoga teacher training as well. I've forgotten that about her in 2020. So she finds great peace in gardening, cooking, reading, journaling, and being in nature. Please help me welcome today my friend, Jen Frontiero. Hello, Jen.
So nice to be with you today. This is exciting.
It's wonderful. It's so exciting to see you. I feel like I'm going to have to kind of dial back my excitement just a little bit because you and I have been in each other's circles for so long now. And I really just am thankful and excited that you have decided to join us today. So welcome.
Thank you. I appreciated being invited. I was very shy about it at first, but the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I'll try that. I'll stretch myself out of my comfort zone.
I love that so much. And you know, it's so funny that you say it that way, because like you chose to come on and we were talking today about choice. And I distinctly remember saying, hey, you know, there's this show that we're doing. Here are some topics. And I gave you some different topics. And this was the one that resonated with you personally the most. And I'm wondering, what was it about this topic that resonated most for you?
I believe that choice comes into play so often in our lives, and it can often be something that brings us stress, whether that's distress or eustress, you know. And I've always had a very strong intuition. And oftentimes I joke that the only times I've gotten myself into trouble is when I haven't listened to my intuition. And I'm very aware that I frequently follow my intuition to make choices that might seem as though they don't make sense in the grand scheme of things, but but allowing that intuition to guide me has really opened up the door in my life to so many opportunities, so many beautiful people, so many circumstances that have allowed me to stratify in my life, and just being able to have that inner openness, I think, is really important. So it did resonate with me because choice doesn't have to have to come with a heavy burden if you
Mm-hmm.
allow your inner spirit to guide you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So when we were talking about this idea, there were a few different things that came to mind in terms of Water Yourself Wednesday and how we like to come together and really just kind of add some value and some nuggets. And a lot of it comes from our real life experiences. And when we were talking about this idea, um, one of the things that came to mind for me was how often we as women in particular, but not exclusively, beat ourselves up over past choices
Mm-hmm.
and the changes that happened in our lives as a result of the choices that we've made. Um, what is your thought on that part as far as how to process past choices, um, and how to recover from past choices that perhaps had unintended consequences or consequences that may have come at a high cost?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think we've all experienced that feeling of whether it's regret or looking back and saying, I wish that I had done that differently, or holding our past selves to a standard that is entirely impossible considering that we were in a unique set of circumstances at that time, and that we all make choices based on those circumstances at any given time. I
Mm,
think allowing yourself to be at peace with who you were in that moment and where you grew to in the choices that you made, and offer self-forgiveness in that reflection, and having the inner knowing to think about how you would approach your younger self at this stage in life. What advice would
mhm,
you give them, and how would you show up as like a guide to them now?
mhm,
And
mhm, mhm.
yeah, like just grace and forgiveness and understanding that there's no other place that you could be except for here, if not for those choices, if not for um, that moment in time that shaped you to know what you know now, and to be able
Yeah,
to have the level of maturity that you do in this moment based on those
yeah.
things, and what maybe your growth work was in that moment that brought you to now.
See that I think that that's so important because I hear over and over and over again the coulda, shoulda, wouldas.
Hmm.
And what I notice also is that when we're not talking about the coulda, shoulda, and wouldas, then our past experience and the fear of repeating those emotions or that circumstance will stand in the way of a new choice, of a different choice. So
Hmm.
even let's say for sake of argument that you were facing a very similar choice today that
Hmm.
you were facing years ago when you had a hurt or a pain or a misstep, it doesn't necessarily follow that your pendulum should swing completely the other direction and that you should not move forward with that choice because it's a different set of circumstances. Like to your
Hmm.
point, we've grown, we see things differently. Our resources might be different. Our circle of people might be different. Our goals and our objectives may be different. Um, and I see this a lot with relationships, right?
Hmm.
Where maybe you were hurt in a relationship and you remember all the choices that you made to get into and out of that relationship, and then lo and behold, fast forward, you're here in the present, and now you have an opportunity for a different relationship,
Hmm.
but now you're not making decisions based on the here and now. You're
Mm.
making decisions or connections or reacting to what happened back then. And so I do think it's important to kind of notice, like, what is the source of my choice? Is it a
Mhm.
past thought, emotion, or feeling? Is it a present thought, emotion, or feeling? Or even is it a future
Mhm.
thought, emotion, or feeling? What do you think about that?
I think that that's the gift of reflection. I think the gift of reflection is being able to stay rooted in this moment and say, okay, I have this choice ahead of me and this feels familiar. And when I feel this feeling, it's bringing up this sort of set of circumstances, and where have I grown since then? You mentioned relationships. It might be a new relationship. It might be the same relationship that you've been in for years, and you still have the opportunity to make a different choice based on what you're able to reflect on in from years past. And I think bringing yourself to a sense of awareness about your growth and where you were when you made a choice in the past versus where you are now is really powerful.
You said something that that triggered a thought about being able to not only hear that option, but to trust it. So, like, how often is it that we don't trust our choices?
That's a good one, because I think self-trust is very challenging for a lot of people. And especially if you have a previous history where it's felt like you've made choices that have put you in a place of stress or fear or scarcity or whatever that might be. But again, being able to stand in your own personal power and to use your intuitive gifts to really check in with yourself and learn when you're operating from a place of fear versus when you're operating from a place of inner knowing. And I asked this question. I have a friend that, again, similar to you and me, we cross paths a lot, and we tend to be on a similar spiritual journey. And I was having a very difficult time trying to figure out, like, is this intuition or is this fear? I can't tell. And she said to me, well, fear feels contracting. It feels like, oh, like you tighten, where intuition feels expansive. And I carry
Okay.
that with me. I carry that with me so that when I'm having those struggles with trusting my inner knowing, I can check in with my body and say, okay, does this feel constrictive or does this feel expansive?
I love that. I love that. And you
Yes.
know what? That's a physical, tangible way that you can, if you're not sure of anything else, just having that awareness of the body,
Mm-hmm.
noticing, am I tensing? Am I contracting? Or am I feeling excited, open, and free?
Mm-hmm.
I saw a question come across the screen that I thought was really good. And I want to try and get that question back up. Malika says, where do choice making and accountability intersect in the present moment when you're so anxious about the future?
Mm.
So, see, so this one is difficult because we we are hardwired to look forward and back. Being present is so incredibly difficult. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for me, it's getting present, like the accountability piece, the choice making. I have to pause the what if, or the I hope that's, or the if onlys,
Mm-hmm.
and the hypotheticals of all of the permutations of what could, might, possibly would happen in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and bring it to the current present. And here's where the past can help me. um, where's my evidence in the past that I cannot overcome this thing? Or where is my evidence in the past that I have faced something difficult and overcome it? That when I've asked for support, have I gotten it? So I start to look for those kinds of connections of being present and really noticing, like, what is the truth of the moment as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to what is the fear of the moment.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? How do you make that intersection?
Um, I joke around and I talk about the movie. I have little girls. So we listen to our fair share of Frozen and the next right thing. And I think that people talk about like the anxiety of making choices, and just like Malika said, the accountability piece, like if you make this choice, that intersection, what does that look like? Being in the present moment, what is the next right thing? How can I center myself right here, right now, and understand that the choices that I'm making, I don't need to think so far into the future, because we don't live there. We don't live in the future. We live right here. The only thing that's real and true is right now, this moment that you and I are sharing together. And I think that it's a tendency for us to go so far into the future that anxiety does settle, and that we do start to really reel over what the choices for the future, what the outcomes of the choices that we make could be, right? That could, would, should, right? We don't have power over that. What we have power over is right now, and being able to say, okay, the next right thing is this. And to move forward in baby steps versus being so far ahead of ourselves that we're living in the future.
So you said something about that brings to yet another thought of this phrase that we hear often, well, I didn't have a choice, or I don't have any choice, or, it's bad or worse, or it's worse and even worse. Like, so when people are facing that kind of situation, right? Especially like I don't have a choice. Let's unpack that one first. What is the unpacking that we can do around that statement? I don't have a choice, or I didn't have a choice, or they gave me no choice.
Well, there are certainly life circumstances that are dealt to us, and we have a responsibility to play the hell out of those cards. And that means like we all have been handed some things, and that's the more human beings I meet, the more I learn that we all have a unique set of circumstances that have been dealt to us that initially we have no control over. And where we don't have control over the faraway future, and we don't have control over the past, again, that presence of this moment, there's always a choice. And when we feel like we don't have a choice, that's when we're supposed to take the most significant and substantial and intentional pause and say, okay, I do not need to react in this moment. I just need to give myself the space to move into what's next and what's right, even despite both sides of the coin being challenging. Whichever way it's going to play out, it's going to play out. And I believe that there's always a choice. It might not be always the most wonderful options.
Might not be the one we want.
It might not be the one we want, but having the personal empowerment to know that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, and life is going to unfold in a beautiful way, simply because we are here and we exist and we're in this life journey, and it's going to open to us the way that it's supposed to. I think, faith and allowing spirit to move you forward is really important.
Oh, thank you so much for that. And Malika, listen, right there, she says, I believe in evidence-based choices. And sometimes I feel like I negate other aspects or options because of the evidence. So thank you for sharing the idea of boundaries when it comes too far in the future. Yeah. So also, I think sometimes maybe in that pause, and maybe this is, I don't know, maybe this is what everyone else does, and maybe I just have to remind myself, but even just pausing a moment to acknowledge the fact, to assess the fact that this moment, this choice sucks. I mean, not to sugarcoat the moment, and not to,
true.
not to make it seem better or worse than it
No.
actually is, but just to acknowledge the all of these choices in front of me, of all of them, which one can I select that will take me closest to my next right move? I like what you talked about, that very next right step, not the one
Mhm.
that's way down there, but based on what's in front of me, the cards, based on the
Mhm.
cards that I have in front of me, what is the very next right play?
Mhm.
And then compounding that each time you get a little shift. So now you have this tiny shift. What happens next now that you have this tiny shift? And now with what I notice is that each time you make a choice that is taking you into that expansive direction, your options become more open. You have
Mhm.
more beneficial choices. You don't feel pressed. You don't feel trapped. You don't feel like I have no choice. You
Mhm.
start to feel like, okay, that was a really difficult situation. And now that I've given myself some wiggle room, let's see what's here now.
Mhm.
Right. Um, so, in thinking about choices, right? Um, we talked about a little bit about how choices create changes. We touched on how, choices that we might have made differently, or, maybe the choices were not in our best interest at that time, created some changes that, change. Our choices have consequences, our actions have consequences. But we don't want to stay there. We don't want to stay rooted
Mm.
there. We don't want to stay trapped in that mindset. Moreover, giving more air and breath to the agency that comes along with making choices. And
Mhm.
how do we begin to walk in those choices more? And so, for example, for me, I had to start taking some of the things that I was thinking and get them out of my mouth. Like,
Mhm.
because I couldn't expect the people around me to just know what I need from them or
Mhm.
know what I was thinking. So, like, for example, for me, I had to take thoughts and put them into my mouth. So, what are some things as far as trying to, take agency of your choice and actually put them out there into the world, into
Mm.
practice? What are some ways that that's
Oh,
worked for
yeah.
you?
So I want to circle back to one thing you were sharing before, and it was the acknowledgement that sometimes things suck and we just have to name it. And I think that's one place where I don't buy into toxic positivity. I feel like it's very, very important to say, well, these two choices really suck, but I got to do something with them. And then
Mhm.
allowing yourself to have your own expressive modalities to work through what that looks like, what that feels like, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation, whether it's running, movement, whatever that looks like. And then once you can synthesize that through your body, like just having an opportunity to feel a sense of calm and groundedness in the fact that it is what it is now. It like this is the choice that I made, and I'm going to stand in the power of that. And whether it's the right choice or the wrong choice is irrelevant, because there's going to be things that unfold from that, and I always have another opportunity to make another choice. I think that
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
a really powerful thing. I recently found myself in a position where I had two really great choices, and that comes with its own stress too, And I was like, "Oh,
Oh
this
yeah.
yeah, like this is a great option and this is a great option, and if I go over here, then this is great, and if I go over here, then that's great too, and there's some pros and cons to both." And then getting grounded in the fact that, like, wherever this goes, I can change my mind.
You know what? You just like completely flipped the pancake on a whole concept that I wasn't even, my head didn't even go there. But yeah, I mean, the stress that can come along with having various positive choices. And so what could that look like in real life? So, two relationships or two different job opportunities, or should we buy that house or that house? Should I buy this car or that car? Should I save this money or should I invest this money? So
Mm-hmm.
all of those kinds of things. So, okay, let's kind of reverse engineer that. So how, like, walk me through your process on like, okay, you have two great choices. Like, how did you come through making a choice? And then how did you feel on the other side of it?
Well, I think that one thing is being able to, like you were saying, to get it out of your head and out of your mouth, right? So everyone processes things differently. I personally am an extroverted thinker. I can write it all down till the cows come home, but I need to talk to my mom about it. I need to talk to my sister about it. I need to make sense of it. And usually once I say it out loud, it comes a little bit easier. So first, identifying how it is that you need to synthesize that information. Pros and cons lists are really amazing, but really, I think the most important piece of it is not getting in your head about what other people think. And I think that that's
Mm.
another piece of the puzzle when it comes to making choices and living with however those choices unfold, is that you have personal agency over your life. You have sovereignty. So whatever that looks like for you is going to be your life path unfolding and no one else's, and being
Mhm.
very confident to say, like, no, my choices are my own, and I live my life and I pay my bills, and that's
And there
that.
it is. And there it is. So I think just for sake of bookends, I like to look at choices this way as well. That so you were talking about talking it through, writing them down, bouncing them
Mm,
off of people. I also like to think that sometimes you got to feel your way through,
mm-hmm,
um, and so an exercise that I try is that I feel through like what is the very worst thing that can happen if
mm,
I make this choice, and what does that feel like in my body? Does that give me a headache? Does that give me heart racing? Does that make me tense, or etc.? And then what is the very best thing that can happen if I make this choice? And then I
mm-hmm,
start to see like, where's my tolerance and where is the reality? Like, it's like a sliding scale. Like, okay, I can go this far and no further on this. And that
mm-hmm,
sometimes will help me make a choice. Like, how does it actually feel in my body? Um, how am I able to process or tolerate the consequences of that choice? Because I kind of feel like once you have had a chance to think it through on both sides, you
mm-hmm.
already can envision, okay, here's what I am going to do should this happen, good or
Yeah.
bad, good
Yep.
or bad.
I agree with that. I call it, let's play worst case scenario. I'll say that to my sister, my friend, they'll be going through, and I'll be, all right, let's play worst case scenario. And like back to that idea of feeling it in your body, just like I was talking about in the beginning with, does it feel constrict? Does it contract or does it expand? And that's a big piece of it.
I love that
And
so I'm going to take that with
and it's
me.
hard for me. I'm going to admit it. It's hard for me sitting in quiet meditation with the thought and just allowing whatever to come up is very powerful. I'm a busy
Yeah.
bee, but when it comes time to make decisions, it is very important to get quiet and still and to find what comes up organically.
Oh, I love that so much. So I'm just realizing that we have one more person that you guys can't see behind the scenes. And Zeph, I know that you're behind the scenes in the room there. I'm just wondering if you would want to come in, if there are any closing thoughts or questions that you have for Jen
I've
as
just
we
been
bring
enjoying
this to
behind
a
the scenes.
close. I know, I know.
Jen, thank you for sharing with us, your story of give of choice. But we always ask this to all our guests, what would be the biggest lesson you've learned? Because we only have about, I'd say probably about a minute here to wrap up. But what is the biggest lesson you've learned about your transformation with the gift of choice? Maybe something that our audience can take away.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Um, I think the big picture of the gift of choice is that you can always choose again, that you can always make another choice, that that you have here and now, and the past might inform the choices that you make, and to allow your inner knowing to guide you, and that you don't have as much control as you think.
Okay. That part.
I love that you threw that in. All right.
That part.
I just had to come on and ask that question. So I'm just going to let Typhanie wrap it up for us. But thank you, Jen, for being here with us and sharing.
Thank you, Zeph. It was so wonderful to meet you.
Likewise.
Thank you, Zeph. And thank you guys for listening in. Thank you, Jennifer, for your time. If you're catching us on the replay, guys, please, 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 if things are resonating for you, if you have strategies, if you have tips, if you have ideas that would possibly work for someone else, please drop them in the chat, in the comments, because you never know, someone may be able to benefit from your areas of expertise or your experiences. And so in this season, as we come to a close for the end of the year and things are going to start getting all hectic and crazy and you're shopping and you're doing family visits and all of that, I'm going to invite you and encourage you to practice that pause. And at any given moment, remember, you always have choices that you can make, whether you want to go to that event or not go to that event, if you want to stay at home or if you want to be social, if you want to spend money, if you want to save money. Pause and remember that you have the ability to choose and create the life that you desire and deserve. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. Tune in next time for Water Yourself Wednesdays. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and keep your eyes posted here because we have some more fun coming for you on Wednesdays. So keep your eyes on Water Yourself Wednesday pages. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Typhanie.
Thank you for tuning in to the show. We hope the stories shared have inspired you to water yourself. Your transformation begins here. Until next time, keep on manifesting the life you desire and truly deserve. The Water Yourself Wednesdays show is a production of Engage LLC and is brought to you by Water Yourself Retreat. Get more information about the event and community support at wateryourselfretreat.com. You can also follow us on your favorite social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube.